Okay, please hold for Dave Sim, the July edition. Question from Travis H. in Trigo, Wisconsin. I hope that's how I'm supposed to pronounce that, Matt. You would know better than I would. It looks like Trigo, Wisconsin. Could be Trago. Um, we'll leave it at that. Hi, Dave. I hope you are well. I came across this near the back of a 1990s Canadian comic series I've been slowly finding here and there. Assuming you are the quote, Dave, unquote, in the strip. Can you tell a story about this event on Please Hold for Dave Sim? Regards, Travis. Uh, yeah, I'm the Dave in the strip, and uh, Steve Bissett, of course, is playing Steve Bissett. Mark is Mark Asquith. Um, so uh, the question becomes who is Mark Asquith in a lot of senses. Um, and to answer that, Mark Asquith wore a couple of very significant hats uh, in the 1990s and 1980s. One of which was as the manager, senior buyer, head honcho, go-to guy at the Silver Snail in Toronto, and uh, was definitely an instrumental figure in that sense. Um, I remember one of the stories about when Sandman was coming out or had been coming out for about a year or two. Um, the, uh, the people that were working at the Snail all got something from DC. I forget what it was, but it was something autographed by Neil Gaiman and the artists on Sandman, and question marks going off over their head, and why are we getting these? And it's like, well, you sold whatever it was, um, this many copies of Sandman in the Silver Snail, as opposed to this many copies throughout all Canada, which was probably, I think, about 50% or something like that. So when Mark Asquith and the other snails got together and said, "This book needs to be pushed. This book needs to be hyped." They knew exactly how to do it, and they never abused it. It was always, "Yep, this book needs all of the muscle we can put behind it, and let everybody know you got to pick this up." And people were seldom, if ever, disappointed by any recommendation Mark Asquith and the staff would make. Um, okay, so there's that, and then also as part of trying to promote comics and trying to get comics out to a wider audience, I hope uh, Matt, that you can find pictures of the Silver Snail um, from the 1980s on Queen Street West in Toronto. Um, so there's that, and then we have to jump sideways to Mark Asquith and Moses Znaimer, spelled Z, since mostly Americans listening to this, Znaimer, who owned City TV. And let me get my thoughts organized, and I will try and give you some cues here, Matt, for visuals while I mull this over. Okay, so Moses Znaimer was a TV entrepreneur in Toronto at the time when cable TV was just coming into its own. I was trying to remember whose song it was, whether it was Bruce Springsteen. I think it was Bruce Springsteen. 65 channels and nothing on, and it was that time period where all of us who had grown up with 12 channels at best, maybe five of them that came in clear as a bell. Um, and when cable came along, suddenly you had, instead of turning the dial, you had this box attached to your television that you clicked, and you would channel surf from the comfort of your armchair. That proved to be my undoing eventually. About the time that 65 channels and nothing on became 120 channels and nothing on, and uh, you didn't have a box with all of the buttons on it going all the way down the one row and then all the way back the other row and then all the way down the row you just finished with. Now you just had your hand gizmo and could change the channels and weren't really registering exactly how many channels there were now. Anyway, Moses Znaimer got in on the ground floor on that and basically um, did a cable channel in Toronto called City TV, which broadcast just about across the metropolitan Toronto, and that was it. You could occasionally get it outside of those parameters, um, but he decided, well, what the heck, a television station's a television station, and became known from the Baby Blue movie, which I believe was Friday night at 11 o'clock, maybe Saturday night at 11 o'clock, and there would be a soft core porno film on City TV, which definitely got a lot of people watching City TV who would ordinarily be watching CBC or CTV or the Buffalo channels, WBEN, and all of those nice folks. And it was like this. Um, is this a rumor? Is this actual? Does this actually happen? And it's like, yes, it does actually happen uh, every Friday night, and then gradually um, his range expanded so that it was across most of southern Ontario. I think at which time the Baby Blue movie um, went the way of all flesh, no pun intended, and then was supplanted by, well, okay, these aren't really porno films, but there is nudity in them, and we're not going to cut the nudity out. So you know, there you go. This makes us City TV. Um, Channel seven. It was 79 at one point, but it was City TV channel whatever everywhere, and that was one of their mottos. Um, and basically, Moses Znaimer went, okay, City TV is up and going, and it's got basically a lot of cheesy stuff on it, a lot of second run stuff. But we're holding our own. We are making money. We are selling ads. And then he started expanding and going, well, why not just develop all of these cable channels, specialty channels for food, specialty channels for this, that, and the other thing. And one of the things that they did was, I believe it started as Space TV. I may be remembering incorrectly here. that can't be ruled out. Um, but it was space TV, which was, or the science fiction channel, something. It was called something like that. And one of the things that they did on the science fiction channel, and I believe this was Mark Asquith's doing, was, the Silver Snail was just down the street from City TV on Queen Street West. And I think Mark started lobbying. Um, I would like to do a comic book show with interviews with comics professionals because they had a fair number of people coming into um, Toronto to the Silver Snail to do signings, and there were fair number of conventions in Toronto, and it's like, well, okay, um, we get a couple of video cameras, and we record these guys, and we basically run the interviews on a thing called, I believe it started as Prisoners of Gravity. Again, I may be misremembering. And the conceit was that Commander Rick was orbiting in his spacecraft and was narrating all of the material. So he would, you know, kick off the show and then introduce whatever the subject was, and then start showing the interviews. Um, and Mark Asquith was the guy who did, I would say, virtually all of the interviews. If he didn't do all of them, he did virtually all of them. And it was like this nonstop process. So if you were doing a signing at the Silver Snail, part of the thing would be, can I interview you for Prisoners of Gravity? And it's like, sure, all right. It's like none of us knew if this was doing any good for comics, but it obviously wasn't hurting comics to have a television show devoted to comic book professionals, and apart from Commander Rick, treating the whole thing pretty seriously. But it was interesting because Mark would tell you, okay, this isn't going to run as a Q&A. They're not going to hear my voice, and they're not going to hear my question. So when you're answering the question, if you can add an introductory sentence or two just to reiterate the question or say what it is that you're talking about, so that we can edit me out completely, and it's not going to leave people wondering, wait a minute, I missed the beginning of this. What's going on here? So uh, it was an interesting experience because, if you were somebody that was only going to be at the Silver Snail or at a convention every once in a while, which I was, Mark would have basically a mental list of, here's all the shows that are coming up. Here's the one on creators' rights. Here's the one on Swamp Thing. Here's the one on whatever else and whatever else and whatever else. So basically, Mark would ask you a question, and then you would have to rephrase the question so it's part of your answer, so that people aren't getting lost. And then as soon as you answered that question, then he came at you from complete left field, like, what about sports and comics? It's like, okay, well, sports and comics, and then you'd be going, well, what am I going to say about this? Which is one of the reasons that we do Please Hold for Dave Sim the way that we do it, which is, if you ask me the question, give me a little while to put the answer together, you're going to get a much better answer than if you just throw this at me. But Mark, like most people that worked in television and most journalists, it's like, well, it's an integrity thing. You can't tell the interview subject what you're going to ask them, because that's giving them too much time to contrive an answer. It's like, well, I'm not really contriving an answer. It's like I'm going, okay, I do have things to say about this, but if you don't want me just stumbling around and you know, going false start to false start until I find my footing, if you can just give me the list of the questions and I can read them ahead of time, then I'll go, oh, okay, I know what I can say about that. So that's leading into the fact that Mark Asquith was here in Kitchener at the Spirits of Independence stop, which was December 1995 at the Walper Hotel. This was in a meeting room in the basement of the Walper Hotel, right next to the bar, so you could go and get a beer if you wanted to. And what you're reading is basically Mark did have a tendency to conflate himself with his subjects, which is really what he's doing here. Steve Bissett is doing his Journey into Fear slide presentation. And Matt, you might be able to find my illustration that I did for Steve Bissett's Journey into Fear slideshow that ran in Cerebus. And said to Steve, "How about this? Did I knock that one out of the park for a horror image?" And Steve, of course, goes, "Too pretty." It's like, I will never escape that. Too pretty. And this is again December of the Spirits of Independence year, so we have been doing pretty much one show a month since I think it started in February. The first one was in Austin, Texas. And if it wasn't one a month, it was pretty close to one a month. And I had seen Steve's Journey into Fear slideshow pretty much every time that he did it. I don't think there was any time that I missed, because it's incredibly interesting. It's Steve Bissett talking about horror comics and the whole history of horror comics from a personal point of view. And then, this thing led to that thing. And a lot of people think that this was more influential, but I'd say that this thing's more influential. And I think the authors here, Robert Gabler and Robert Drew, were lowballing, making it look like it was about 90 minutes long. I don't think it was about 90 minutes long. I think it was closer to 2.5 to 3 hours, because once Bissett started going, he would go off on a tangent, or somebody would ask a question from the audience, and it's like, well, okay, I wasn't really going to talk about this, but here you go. I'll answer that question. And he would do that. He was very good at doing that. The problem was Mark Asquith, there's always more that you can add to the subject. Particularly, I'm looking at the House of Secrets cover, and it's this is Bissett saying, okay, this is where Swamp Thing debuted. This is the first appearance of Swamp Thing in House of Secrets number 92, and is going to start talking about what a watershed moment that was relative to everything else that was going on at the time. And Mark Asquith goes, Wheezy, that's Louise Simonson. Yes, it is. If we want to turn this into a conversation, Mark, we can point out that it isn't Louise Simonson, because she was Louise Jones at the time. She was married to Jeff Jones. when Bernie Wrightson used her as the model for the girl on the cover of House of Secrets. And it's like I'm sitting there going, okay, this slideshow is already conservative estimate 2 hours long, probably pushing closer to 3 hours, and there hasn't been a slide come up yet that Mark Asquith didn't have something to add to it. Um, which it's relevant. Oh, Steve, it's also important to note that issues 2 and 4 were stopped at the Canadian border, talking about taboo, and it's like, yeah, we can get into that discussion of these books were printed in Canada at Printing Print and Litho, and then shipped to the U.S. distributors, and then seized at the border coming back in. And it's like, okay, that's more than a little strange, and we don't want to be telling anybody that these are printed in Windsor, Ontario, and we don't want to be telling anybody that they is published by a guy in Kitchener, Ontario. Um, but it's Mark going, well, Steve doesn't know this because he's from Vermont, and this will be Mark Asquith making a Canadian contribution that should be footnoted here. And it's like Steve knew that the books were seized at the border, uh, but none of us was saying anything. It's not like I had the wherewithal or Steve had the wherewithal to sue the Canadian government for censorship. Um, we're a country without a First Amendment, and you can turn that into the discussion, but it's a 2.5 hour slideshow. Steve Bissett did Taboo with John Tottleman, the two of them editing and picking out stuff. And here's what Steve has to say about his publication. Can we just forget about Canada Customs and the books being seized? Uh, I I don't I don't remember getting up and going over to have a chat with Mark Asquith. I would dissent from the fact that it looks like I gave him one upside the head. Um, but definitely it was, I can picture myself trying to get over there, and I had probably had, 2 or 3 beers at that point, and maybe more beers as Mark Asquith kept interrupting and giving us more useful information than even Steve Bissett could on his own. And it was a very cramped space downstairs. So it's not outside of the realm of possibility that getting over to Mark Asquith, I was I was stepping on people, and I apologize if I did that. And I also apologize for getting in Mark Asquith's face, but it was this is supposed to be like the Friday night slideshow, and then tomorrow is going to be the actual convention. Um, if we keep going at this rate, we're not going to get done until like 3 in the morning, and we're all supposed to be down in the Crystal Ballroom, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed at 9:30 in the morning. So there's the story on that one. If you're looking for visuals, um, Matt, I would suggest see what you can find in terms of clips for City TV um, CP24, which is still what it's called to this day. That's the news channel. Um, City Pulse, um, the City TV building on Queen Street West. I mean, it was an amazing thing. I don't think it's sustained itself since they moved over to Dundas Square for their operations. But there were, what's another one? 20-minute workout. If you can find clips of the city TV 20-minute workout, there's a drop dead gorgeous brunette who did the 20-minute workout, who was Moses Neimer's significant other at the time. So I don't know how that ended up, but probably not happily. But she was definitely someone worth watching. The exercise program that would be on, I think, about 2 or 3 times a day. So we can dress it up with 20-minute workout, um, and all the other channels. If you can just look for City TV, Moses Znaimer, and cable channels, they probably still have title cards and stuff like that for the different shows. It was a very interesting building. It's like, you know, going to see Mark Asquith at City TV at its peak. You know, you had to get past the receptionist, but once you were past the receptionist and you went up the stairs, it was just television channel after television channel after television channel. Each floor had, like, book TV was one of them. Um, I was interviewed on that one, um, and I don't know what it was called, but there was a Friday night show. One of the innovations that Moses Neimer did was that the bottom floor for City TV was completely glass enclosed, and they did a lot of their television shows right there, where you could walk by and, you know, if Madonna was in town, and you know, it was the music channel was Much Music. Um, if you if Madonna was in town, the odds were pretty good that she would come downtown and sit for an interview for Much Music, and another one for Breakfast Television, which was their morning show and probably still is. And there you are walking down Queen Street, and there's a mob of people, literally a mob of people, all pressed against the glass. And it's like, okay, I got to see who's here, because this is a lot of folks who would otherwise just be wandering past. And it was also a party on Friday night when Much Music would be doing interviews, and also they had people dancing inside and people dancing outside. And you would go down there at 11 o'clock at night, you know, 12 o'clock at night, and it's like, well, here it is. This is Here it is live. The thing that I channel surf past um, every every Friday night when I'm looking for other things. So that was amazing, which dovetails into another story. It's like, well, you know, as long as I'm all the way in here, I might as well be all the way in here. One of the things when latter days was starting, I was just starting to serialize Cerebus 264, 265, 266, around there. I was trying to do promotion for that. And one of the promotions that I thought of doing in Toronto was I said to um, Van, Van Leeuwen, why can't I remember his first name? He's the guy that owned Andromeda Distribution. Ron Van Leeuwen owned Andromeda Distribution, also owned the Silver Snail, and um, was, you know, the go-to guy in Toronto. And basically, I said, you know, I'll come down to Toronto and do a signing at the Snail, Um, but can we try something that hasn't been tried before, so that um, I can either go, all right, this is now part of the repertoire of promotion ideas, or I can just cross it off the list and say, no, doesn't work. No idea why it doesn't work, but it doesn't work. And I said, can you set up an easel in the front window of the Silver Snail, and I'll be in the front window, and give me a large pad of paper, and I'll basically just stand there all day doing big drawings of Cerebus, and we'll give the drawings away to people who are interested in having them, but we'll see. It's Queen Street West in Toronto. It's if this was Los Angeles, this would be a Rodeo Drive. So it's a heavy traffic environment, deep pocketed people at the time. A real fashion center. Um, so let's try a little glitz. Let's try a little rock and roll. And it's like Ron was game. Okay, what the heck, and basically had the pad and a stool for me to sit on, and he put a top hat on the stool. And it's like, I'm not wearing the top hat, but it was Ron's way of going, okay, this is like way over the edge, um, in terms of ego. And it's like, well, it's not really ego. It's just, does this work? If it works, then you keep doing it. If it doesn't work, then you don't keep doing it. And one of the things that I'd said to Mark Asquith was, at some point, can you send somebody over with a city TV camera, handheld camera? Don't it doesn't even have to be a working camera. Just if they can, um, you know, film me in quotation marks in the front window of the Silver Snail, doing a drawing of Cerebus, and uh, we'll see where that goes. Do they want to use it on breakfast television? Do they want to use it as a throwaway on City Pulse News? Any one of those things would be fine. And it's like Mark said, okay, well, I can't guarantee anything, but I'll see what I can do. So there I am in the window, drawing pictures of Cerebus, and turning around every once in a while. How am I doing? And there'd be like two people watching me draw, and then they'd see me look at them, and they'd walk away. Um, Most of the people were just walking past. Um, some people would, if one person stopped and started watching, they would keep watching until somebody else stopped, and then they'd go, oh, well, somebody else is watching, so I have to leave now. And it's like, okay, it took about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours for me to go, all right, well, this is crossed off the list. I said I would do this for however long, and I will keep doing this. But if you can't draw a crowd on Toronto's answer to Rodeo Drive, uh, in the middle of the day, in the middle of a weekday, then there's no hope. The punchline of the story is that Mark Asquith did find somebody with a camera who was willing to come over and just pretend to shoot some footage, and actually shoot some footage and see if it's something that he can use for something. And as soon as that guy showed up and had his camera up and mounted and pointed in the front window, boom, giant crowd. It's like, wait a minute. There's nothing different here. There's just a camera. No, if City TV is there and filming it, that became a big deal on Queen Street West. Um, Same related story when Neil Gaiman was just having his first major successes with Sandman, and was doing a signing at the Silver Snail. Um, there was a lineup of people like right through the store, out in the street, and all the way down the street for autographs. And the word went around that Neil Diamond is signing stuff at the Silver Snail, and it's like it's not Neil Diamond, it's Neil Gaiman. But Neil Diamond they'd heard of, Neil Gaiman they hadn't heard of. So there you go. Probably a more elaborate answer than you thought you were going to get, but we live but to serve here at Please Hold for Dave Sim. I do have to add that Mark Asquith was always a guy in the comic field that I gravitated to if there was an event in Toronto or a party or something like that. Um, he always had very interesting opinions, and probably more important to that, very current and well informed opinions about things that as the comic book field evolved and sometimes with great rapidity and sometimes a little bit slower and then great rapidity again. Mark was always at the center of that. So it was anytime that I saw him at a party or a convention or something like that, I definitely did more listening than talking. Although I did have my own opinions skewed in the direction of indie comics, um, and we do owe him a debt. A lot of the high quality video of people from the 1980s and 1990s. It's those are Mark Asquith's interviews with those people for Prisoners of Gravity, and we wouldn't have those otherwise. And there's just not that much video compared to what there is now. So I would say we all owe him a great debt of thanks that that body of video interview work exists.